Eiyuden Chronicle Rising was released in 2022 for all consoles and is the first game to be released in the Eiyuden Chronicle series, which is considered to be the spiritual successor to the legendary Suikoden JRPG series that got its start back on the PlayStation 1. The game was announced on Kickstarter back in June 2020 as a collaboration between multiple veteran Suikoden series developers, including series creator Yoshitaka Maruyama, who had served as the director of Rising. So, after completing Rising, am I more excited to play its sequel, 100 Heroes, or am I now considering skipping 100 Heroes entirely? Let's dive in and find out. Eiyuden Chronicles Rising is set in the town of New Nivea, a remote region of where the main game 100 Heroes is set to take place. The player assumes the role of a teenage girl named CJ as she arrives in the town of New Nivea in search of adventure and treasure, where she meets other characters who join her as party companions. Eiyuden Chronicle Rising is a 2D side-scrolling action role-playing game that has the player exploring a labyrinth-like series of rooms that you will visit multiple times throughout your playthrough as you upgrade different weapons and items that allow you to explore areas that were previously impossible to reach. And if you think that sounds sort of like a Metroidvania game, well then you are right, and I must say that's something that I wasn't expecting, but very much appreciate it as I do love Metroidvania games. Now, in case you're wondering, you'll still find all the standard RPG tropes here that we've come to expect and enjoy, I think, over the years, like character and party leveling, as well as weapon, armor, and accessory upgrades. Now, as mentioned earlier, this is an action-based RPG, and as you progress through the game, you'll learn and be able to upgrade something called chain attacks that will essentially freeze time in the middle of an attack and allow you to swap your current character in real time with another character, allowing you to chain two attacks together, which becomes quite useful as you make your way through the game. But it doesn't stop there, because you can actually earn multiple chain attack upgrades as you continue to progress through the game. Another aspect of the combat system is the runes. Now, runes grant special attributes to a character's attacks if equipped to their weapons, or it can protect them from specific elements when equipped to their armor. They can also be used to break elemental pillars, which essentially serve as a giant boulder that blocks you from entering specific areas of the game's map, just like we'd see in Metroidvania games. Graphically speaking, I really enjoyed the way the developers combined these sort of semi-detailed 3D worlds with 2D characters that are reminiscent of what Square Enix used with the Octopath Traveler series. Now, given the fact that this game was meant to serve as sort of a side story prequel to the main game, 100 Heroes, there's not a ton of environmental location variety throughout the game, but I think there's enough here to be able to enjoy the art style in a handful of different settings. And I would expect that there would be a lot more environmental variety in the full game 100 Heroes. Now, when it comes to the game's music, guys, I thought every track in the game was excellent, and if you've played the Suikoden series, I think you'll feel right at home with Rising's fully orchestrated soundtrack. Now, I'm actually hoping that the soundtrack has some continuity and some of the songs makes their way over to 100 Heroes, because some of the tracks were simply that enjoyable. So, who is this game for? Well, I would say it's for anyone who's a fan of JRPG games, especially 90s and early 2000s JRPGs. I think if you liked games like the Octopath Traveler series, you probably appreciate this game. And then, obviously, anyone who's a fan of the Suikoden series, if you haven't played it, I can't blame you. It's a tough game to get physically. I'm almost positive this is a game that you can't get on like the PlayStation Store. It's not one of those games that's easy to track down today. However, Konami is working on Suikoden 1 and 2 Remastered. That was supposed to come out in 2023, and then Konami issued a statement that it was going to be delayed. So one would only presume that we'll probably get it sometime this year. But if you look up reviews for Suikoden, it's highly regarded, and that's a big reason why so many people back this game on Kickstarter, because it had the pedigree from the Suikoden series. Diving in now to the game's overall content, and I must say that for a game that's $14.99 digitally, this game is definitely packed full of content, even if it was $30, right? And a big part of that was the side quest. Basically, you do side quests all throughout the game. You can go up to people in town and speak to them and give you some jobs to do, like, hey, I need these items, and you got to figure out where it is in the game. So say for example, one of the quests needs you to track down some quartz. Another quest needs you to track down some sort of hardwood. So the hardwood would probably be in the forest, right? And you could probably find the quartz in the quarry, and then you can fast travel to the quarry to go find the quartz, right? And so when I found out how many side quests were in the game, it's actually a pretty daunting number. There's 160 side quests, which is a lot. But I will say that when you're doing your main quest, you're actually gathering a lot of the items that you're going to end up needing for these side quests. So I might go up to someone in town, they're going to give me a side quest. They'll say, I need this, this, and this. And then I'll see that I already have this item, and this item. So then I can literally complete the quest as soon as I accept it. Does that make sense? A lot of the quests were like that. So as long as when you're going through the main quest, you're actually exploring and you're picking up items and you're doing your due diligence in that respect, I think these side quests will go by pretty quickly, as they did for me. So obviously I didn't think the game was light on content. As far as the main missions go, I think there's 31 missions plus the 160 side quests. So there's a lot to do. And then you do have to collect items when you're out in quest in order to craft new items or craft stronger weapons, armor, etc. So there's a lot to do there. Jumping in now to the game's overall difficulty, and I feel like the difficulty level was very balanced throughout. It did get harder as the game progressed, but that's something I think that we should all expect, that the game's going to get tougher as we continue to get closer to the end. And just like any other RPG, right? As long as you're leveling up your characters, you're upgrading your weapons, armor, your accessories, all that stuff, you're going to be fine. You're going to be able to see the end of the game, you know? So as with any RPG, you always got to talk about the grind, right? How much of a grind was this game? Well, I would say it wasn't too grindy, right? Now, if you're going for the platinum trophy, you are going to need to do all 160 side quests. But again, many of those items you're going to find along the way, but there is definitely some grind there. In order to beat the game, you don't have to do all the side quests. So you can actually get through the game according to howlongtobeat.com in about 12 hours if you do just the main quest, right? Now, if you're a total completionist and you want to get that platinum trophy, then it's going to be anywhere between 19 and 25 hours. I know that's a pretty big range, but basically if you try and rush through everything and just do all the quests and all the side quests, you're looking at like 19 hours and 25 hours if you go through it leisurely. So again, you don't have to complete all the side quests. That's really up to you, right? However, if you do complete the side quest, you'll earn XP to level up your character as well as each individual shop and town. So let me explain. For example, completing side quest for the smithy in town will allow him to build a larger store, which will then allow you to further upgrade your weapons, and the same can be said for every shop in town. So there's an actual incentive to do all the side quests outside of just earning XP, and I thought that was a very well executed idea by the development team. Now, discussing the pacing and length of the game, I did all of the game's side quests, and I still felt like the main story's mission unfolded nicely, and it never felt like at any point the game was dragging on. When it comes to the game's emotion and charm, when I first started the game and I kind of saw like what the gameplay hook was going to be, I was like, okay, so this is like really side quest heavy. Like I thought it was a very interesting decision to make the game like that, but I wanted to see it through. And I will say that it became a very addicting gameplay loop. And I'll talk about that a little bit more when I talk about the game's overall fun factor. But the game feels very nostalgic for some reason. And I just presume it's because of just the overall direction of the game and the inspiration with it being inspired by a game like Suikoden. And even the art style kind of gives off some old school vibes, but the story, in the beginning I wasn't like super into the story, but as the game went on, I actually did become more involved in the story and I actually started to enjoy it, but that was because they did such a great job with the character building. So as far as replayability, if you decide to go for the platinum or ultimate achievement, it does require you to complete some additional post-game side quests, fully level up each character's weapons and armor, and defeat the final boss on hard mode. So was the game fun? I gotta say, Rising has an addicting gameplay loop that can sometimes feel a little mindless, but at the same time feel fun and engaging, which ended up leaving me genuinely smirking and wondering how the game's developers did it. The side quests were actually fun, and it was gratifying when you'd complete a quest followed by a cutscene showing the shop owner demolish his store and then rebuild it right in front of you, and then you immediately get to see what all the new upgrades are that are available, and whether or not you have the supplies to craft the upgrade, or if you have to go out and find the items in the open world, or by the way of, an enemy item drop. This was just an extremely fun and satisfying loop that I didn't expect to latch onto the way I did. So yeah, I had a ton of fun. Alright guys, now for my final thoughts. I had an absolute blast playing Eiyuden Chronicles Rising. The further I got into the game, the more I was enjoying myself, and when I knew the game was close to coming to an end, the sadness started to sink in a little bit because I didn't want it to end. I had actually bought into the story and background of each character, and that care I had for the characters caused me to buy into and care about the overarching story. So the combat at first felt pretty simple, and I was like, oh man, this might be too easy. But it did become more engaging as the enemies became stronger and I progressed through the game. The soundtrack was fire from beginning to end. Looking back now, about a week removed from completing the game, and there's really nothing I didn't like about this game. And now I am even more excited to start the main game, Eiyuden Chronicles 100 Heroes. So with that said, I highly recommend this game, and I hope you find the same enjoyment out of it that I did. So as always, thank you guys for tuning in, and I hope you all have an awesome day.